You ever have one of those moments? You've got this brilliant, perfectly clear idea in your head, but the second you try to write it down, it just falls apart on the page? It's so frustrating, right? Well, here's the thing. The problem probably isn't your idea. It's that you're missing a system, a way to translate that idea from your mind into someone else's. And believe it or not, the system we're looking for, it's hidden in a pretty unexpected place, an artist's studio. Yeah, that's right. To solve our writing problem, we first need to take a look at a challenge that artists figured out centuries ago. You see, for hundreds of years, artists were wrestling with the exact same problem we writers face today. How in the world do you project a complex, three-dimensional reality onto a simple, flat, two-dimensional surface? Their solution was this incredible kind of secret geometry. That system is called linear perspective, and it's not some kind of magic trick. It's a deliberate set of rules, a framework that allows an artist to create a totally convincing illusion of depth. It's how they organize reality in a way that just makes sense to our eyes. And the most important part of this whole system, the key ingredient, is something called the vanishing point. Just picture yourself standing on a long, straight road or looking down a set of train tracks. You know for a fact those two rails are parallel, but they look like they're getting closer and closer until way off in the distance they meet at a single point. That point, that's the vanishing point. Now here's what's really fascinating. Artists don't just copy what they see. I mean, a real-life scene has a practically infinite number of vanishing points. So what does the artist do? They simplify. They strategically choose just one or two main points to build their entire drawing around. And that choice creates this consistent, believable world, and it completely defines your relationship, as the viewer, to everything in that scene. Okay, so what does any of this art history stuff have to do with you writing your next email or a report or anything else? Well, everything. A writer is facing the exact same invisible challenge. You're trying to project a complex idea from the 3D space of your mind onto the 2D page for someone else to read. And this is where we see two types of writers. First, there's the naive writer. They basically just transcribe their thoughts, assuming that because the idea makes perfect sense to them, it'll make sense to everyone else. But then there's the intentional writer. They know that writing isn't just a transcript, it's a transformation. They deliberately engineer the text to guide the reader, step by step, to the right understanding. And this brings us right to the core insight of this whole thing. This is where the artist studio connects directly to your keyboard, and it's a real game changer. Think about it. Just like an artist has to organize their entire drawing around one single fixed point on the horizon, what's the fixed point that should organize your entire piece of writing? It's your reader. That's it. Your reader's identity, what they know, what they value, the assumptions they have, that is the single, unmoving point that gives your writing structure, depth, and most importantly, clarity. Everything you write has to point directly at them. I mean, look at how perfectly this analogy maps out. In drawing, you have perspective. In writing, that's your context, your audience. The artist's vanishing point, that's your reader's worldview. The forms the artist draws, like a cube or sphere, those are your core ideas. And the artist's parallel lines, well, that's where this gets really useful. Those parallel lines in your writing are all the little choices you make. It's your tone of voice, your specific word choice, the evidence you decide to use, even how you format the text. For your writing to feel coherent and persuasive, every single one of those lines has to consistently point toward that one vanishing point, your reader. So this is a really powerful idea, right? But how do we actually use it? Well, we can borrow again from the artist's toolkit by thinking about our writing in what we can call one-point and two-point contexts. So a one-point context is the simplest. It's when you define your audience as a single, clear identity. For example, I'm writing this for a curious 10-year-old. Every word you choose, every example you use, points directly to them. But a two-point context is trickier. Imagine you have to write a memo for both the finance department and the engineering department. Now your idea has to satisfy two different vanishing points at the same time. You need the numbers for finance and the technical specs for engineering. If you don't, the whole thing will look warped and unconvincing to at least one of them. So how do you get good at this? Well, just like an art student, you can start a simple training regimen. You don't start by trying to paint a masterpiece. You start with the fundamental drills. Here are two to get you started. First, practice rendering simple forms. Take an idea you know inside and out and write a simple definition of it. First, write it for a 10-year-old. Then, write it for an expert in your field. Just feel how all your parallel lines, your tone, your examples, your vocabulary have to completely shift. Second, start to read like an artist. When you find a piece of writing you really admire, try to reverse engineer it. Ask yourself, who is the vanishing point here? And how did the author masterfully align every single choice to point right at them? Practicing this leads to the ultimate goal. For an artist, true mastery isn't just about copying a scene perfectly. The real flex is being able to render that same scene from a totally different angle. And the same is true for our writer. Mastery is understanding an idea so deeply that you can make it clear and compelling for any audience, from any perspective. There's no better example of this than Diego Velázquez's masterpiece, Las Meninas. It is just the absolute pinnacle of this skill. He constructed the entire scene with such insane geometric precision that he literally places you, the viewer, in the exact physical spot where the King and Queen of Spain would have been standing. We aren't just looking at a painting. He has completely defined our perspective for us. Now that is mastery. So the next time you sit down to write, before you type a single word, just ask yourself this one simple question. Who is that fixed point on your horizon? Who is your vanishing point?